Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into the really fascinating and, let's be honest, often complex world of artificial intelligence management.
hmm
We're looking at everything, right? How AI gets integrated, the ethics, the daily operations, and yeah, managing the risks.
Absolutely. Big topics.
We've got this source, AI Audit 187 QAES.pdf. It's incredibly detailed. Feels almost like we're looking over an expert's shoulder, you know?
It really does. It's quite specific.
So our mission today is to pull out the key insights, give you that shortcut to understanding the best practices, and maybe some of the pitfalls in this whole AI landscape.
And the source really highlights that managing AI, it's not just a tech challenge. It's strategic.
Mm,
Huge implications for organizations, for society.
yeah.
We need to unpack how we make these systems not just, effective, but responsible and trustworthy. That's key.
Okay, let's dive right in then. When you're integrating an AI model, say, with existing software, what's the main goal? It's not just learning, is it?
No, not just the learning capability itself. While that's important, the primary goal is actually enabling user inputs and outputs.
Ah, so making it usable.
Exactly. Making it easier for end users to actually access and use the model. The value comes from its application, not just its internal smarts.
Right, the utility. Makes sense. So thinking bigger picture, what's the main advantage for a whole company to use an AI framework?
Well, an AI framework provides that crucial guidance for putting AI into practice across the organization.
Guidance, how?
It ensures your AI projects actually line up with the company's goals and values. And, importantly, that they stick to industry best practices. It's about strategic alignment, not just speed.
Okay, strategy.
Mm.
But what if a company looks around and realizes, uh-oh, we don't have the right skills for this? What's the best move?
The source points pretty clearly towards bringing in external consultants.
Outsourcing the expertise.
Yeah, at least initially.
Yeah.
It addresses those skill gaps quickly. Plus, they can really help with the strategic planning side of things, too. Get you started right.
It makes sense. Get the experts. But internally, how do you get employees on board? Change is hard. AI can seem scary.
Oh, absolutely. People are key. The source suggests enterprise-wide training, definitely. But also assigning department-level champions.
Champions, like AI cheerleaders.
Sort of. People who can answer questions locally, communicate openly, address those fears about roles changing. It helps build that internal trust and understanding.
Which brings up workforce analysis. Why is that so important when you're thinking about AI?
Because AI will change roles. It just will. A workforce analysis helps the company figure out those changes, what roles might shift, what new skills are needed.
So it's about managing the transition.
Exactly. And identifying opportunities to retrain or upskill employees. It's about bringing your people along, not leaving them behind.
Okay, moving up the chain. AI steering committee. What should their main job be? Are they deep in the tech?
No, not typically. Their primary focus should be higher level, evaluating and prioritizing AI-related risks and opportunities.
So setting the direction.
Precisely. Providing insights that help shape the overall AI strategy. They're the strategic compass, not the engineers building the engine.
Ethics. Huge topic in AI. How do you make sure ethical issues are properly handled?
The best practice recommended is establishing a specific committee just for AI ethics and compliance.
A dedicated group.
Yes, with people from relevant business departments. Their job is to proactively identify, oversee, and address ethical risks and regulations. Embed it from the start.
So if you put all this governance in place, what's the key outcome you're looking for with your AI systems?
You want to ensure they operate according to your company's values while staying compliant with laws and regulations. It's about alignment and compliance.
And who's ultimately responsible for that?
The AI or IT steering committee usually holds that final responsibility for ensuring the program sticks to ethical practices and rules.
When you're actually building an AI solution, is there a specific type of assessment you should prioritize for ethics?
Yes, a Fundamental Rights Impact Assessment, or FRIA.
FRIA. What does that do?
It specifically assesses the AI's potential impact on people, on society. It looks for impacts on fundamental rights, privacy, fairness, things like that, and helps plan mitigation for any negative stuff before you launch.
Proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. It's about responsible design.
So beyond the FRIA, how else do organizations keep AI aligned with ethical principles and societal values? Is it a one-off check?
No, definitely not. It has to be an ongoing process, continuously evaluating the ethical impacts, identifying concerns as the system operates, and as society's views evolve. It's a commitment.
What about aligning with international standards? Lots of different rules out there. What's the priority?
It's tricky. The key is ensuring your risk management is compatible with multiple standards, but also keeping your systems adaptable.
Adaptable how?
You need compliance across borders, sure, but the tech and the rules change fast. So your systems need to be flexible enough to evolve without breaking that compliance. It's a balancing act.
Right.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. This is where it gets really interesting for me. Data, the fuel for AI. Let's start basic. Supervised versus unsupervised learning. What's the core difference?
Oh yeah, fundamental difference. Think of supervised learning like having a teacher. You feed the model labeled data, this picture is a cat, this one's a dog.
It learns from examples with answers.
Exactly. It learns a mapping from input to known output. Great for things like prediction when you have historical data. Unsupervised learning. That's different. No labels.
So no teacher.
Right. You give it a pile of data and say, find interesting patterns or structures in here. It might cluster customers into groups you didn't know existed or find anomalies. It discovers the patterns itself.
Got it. Teacher versus no teacher.
Hmm.
Now, when an AI needs data, what makes sure it's getting the latest info?
That comes down to data currency.
Currency, like money.
No, like time. Timeliness, freshness. How up-to-date is the data relative to what the AI needs it for? Old data leads to bad decisions. Makes sense. And impartiality.
Hmm.
Huge concern. How do developers try to ensure AI decision-making isn't biased?
Data balancing is probably the most critical technique here.
Balancing.
Yeah, making sure different groups or attributes aren't over or underrepresented in the training data. If your data is skewed, your model learns that skew. Balancing helps mitigate that bias.
And who looks after the data itself? There's a role called data steward.
Yes, the data steward is like the guardian of data integrity for AI.
Guardian.
They ensure the quality, accuracy, and compliance of the data used for training and running the AI, overseeing collection, cleaning, governance, making sure the AI's food is good, basically.
Okay. What about privacy? We hear about privacy-enhancing technologies, QAEs. What's a key benefit there?
A major one is increased user control over their personal data. That directly protects privacy and cuts down risk. Techniques like data anonymization make it harder to link data back to a person. Or things like federated learning, where the model learns from data kept locally, without the raw data ever leaving the user's device.
Right.
It builds trust. And a key best practice is ensuring those privacy controls travel with the data from source to storage. Maintain that protection.
So for developers building a model, what's the most vital principle for data privacy?
Probably the principle of least privilege.
Meaning?
Give people only the minimum access they need to do their job. Reduces the risk of unauthorized eyes seeing sensitive data. Simple but effective. And related to that, a big privacy risk in large-scale AI analysis is just collecting too much data, more than you strictly need for the task, just trying to boost accuracy. That increases exposure.
What happens if a model doesn't learn well enough? If it misses the main patterns in the training data?
That's called underfitting. The model is too simple for the complexity of the data.
So it performs badly.
Yeah, poorly on both the data it trained on and new data. It just hasn't learned the underlying relationships. And the opposite problem, overfitting, where it learns the training data too well. A good way to reduce that risk is often to reduce the number of features you feed it.
Fewer features, why?
Too many features can add noise, confuse the model. It learns the noise instead of the real signal, so it doesn't generalize well to new data.
Okay, so the model's deployed. What's this model drift I hear about? What's the concern?
Model drift is when the model's performance gets worse over time,
Why would that happen?
because the real world changes. Data patterns shift, relationships change. What the model learned initially might not hold true anymore.
So what do you do?
The main strategy is periodic retraining with fresh, updated data sets. Keep it current.
How can an auditor check if the training data was even complete? Are there common problems?
Missing values are a huge one. So data imputation techniques, ways to intelligently fill in those gaps, are important for auditors to understand. It helps ensure completeness.
What about data imbalance? You mentioned that for bias, but say in medical diagnoses where rare conditions are critical.
Right, very important there. Techniques like oversampling the rare cases or undersampling the common ones can really help.
How?
It creates a more balanced sample for training, so the model learns to recognize those important but infrequent conditions rather than just ignoring them because they're rare.
And if you have too much data complexity, too many dimensions, how do you simplify?
Feature selection is the go-to method there.
Just picking the best features.
Essentially, yes. Selecting the most relevant features for the task. It improves efficiency and can reduce that overfitting risk we talked about.
So selecting lots of features isn't always good then.
Definitely not. As we said, it increases the risk of overfitting, adds noise, reduces clarity. More isn't always better.
Okay, the black box problem. How do we help people understand why an AI made a certain decision?
That's the whole field of explainable AI, or XAI. Yeah, it focuses on making AI models transparent and interpretable, building tools and methods so users can see the reasoning, not just the result. It's crucial for trust.
So it's not just tech, it's also human oversight.
Absolutely. Human involvement in oversight is essential to ensure the AI meets ethical guidelines and its outputs actually make sense in the real world.
What about test model cards? What's their main purpose in testing?
They're like a spec sheet for the model. They give an overview of its capabilities, its limitations, performance metrics, intended uses,
Why is that needed?
transparency, and accountability. Everyone involved needs to understand what the model can reliably do and what it can't, or where it might struggle. And maintaining effectiveness over time, it really comes back to continuous monitoring, watching for shifts in data, tracking outcomes. That allows you to make necessary updates and keep it reliable.
Why do so many AI projects fail in businesses, according to the source? Is it the tech?
Often no. The biggest factor cited is a lack of alignment with business objectives.
So it works technically, but
But it doesn't solve a real business problem or meet a genuine need, so it gets abandoned. AI has to have a clear purpose.
where do data preprocessing and acquisition fit in the AI lifecycle?
Those happen right up front, during the development stage. There are foundational steps before you even start training.
When you're managing changes, like in ITIL or change management, what's most important for AI systems regarding data?
Keeping track of changes in the data itself that could affect the AI. Detecting that data drift we mentioned and standardizing how data is pre-processed are really key. Consistency matters. And sometimes retraining the whole model isn't practical. In those cases, you can build validation steps around the AI.
Like guardrails.
Exactly. Input validation to shield it from bad data it wasn't trained on, and output validation to catch weird results before they cause problems.
Last one on operations. Generative AI, like ChatGPT, big environmental concerns. Can GenAI itself help with that?
Potentially, yes. By focusing on optimizing the algorithms themselves, making them more efficient.
How does efficiency help?
More efficient algorithms need less computation, which means less energy and potentially less water consumption for cooling those massive data centers. It's about making them leaner.
Okay, let's pivot to security. Using deep learning models for critical business stuff. What's the #1 risk?
It often comes back to that black box problem, the inability to fully explain the decision-making process.
Why is that a security risk?
In critical applications, you need auditability. If something goes wrong or you need to justify a decision legally or ethically, not knowing how the AI decided is a massive problem. It hinders investigation and accountability.
How do you best deal with using old, outdated data in AI?
You need ways to integrate new information. Techniques for ongoing information retrieval to keep the model's knowledge base fresh.
What about adversarial attacks? What's the main security risk they pose?
Their goal is manipulation. They craft inputs, sometimes subtly tweaked, specifically to fool the model into making wrong predictions.
So they make the AI fail.
Exactly. Fail in ways that can benefit the attacker or cause harm. It's a direct attack on the model's reliability.
We often use third-party AI tools. How do you reduce the risk there?
Establishing a shared responsibility model is really effective.
Meaning?
Clearly defining who is responsible for what, the vendor versus your organization. Security, data privacy, monitoring.
Yeah.
It avoids gaps where risks can hide.
What if you use your own company data to fine-tune a model you got from a third party? What's the big risk?
The risk is that the original third-party model might have hidden vulnerabilities.
And those carry over.
Yes. And if it's compromised, any of your enterprise data used for fine-tuning could potentially be exposed to attackers or even other users of the platform. Think data poisoning or leakage.
With generative AI specifically, what's the biggest risk for data security and confidentiality?
A technique called a model inversion attack.
Model inversion.
Yeah, where attackers try to reverse engineer the model to figure out the sensitive data it was trained on, extracting personal info or confidential company data right out of the model.
When deciding where to run your AI in-house servers or the cloud, what's the key trade-off?
It's fundamentally balancing oversight and control versus adaptability and cost.
How so?
In-house gives you more direct control, more potential for customization, but is often way more expensive and less scalable. Cloud offers that scalability, cost efficiency, adaptability, but you might sacrifice some direct oversight.
If you're using a third-party LLM like ChatGPT for sensitive data, how do you best protect privacy?
Encryption is non-negotiable. Encrypt all communications going to and from the LLM.
Is that enough?
Technically vital, but you also need strong contractual agreements. Formal, legally binding clauses about data protection, usage limitations, confidentiality. Both tech and legal layers are needed.
And if it's medical data going to a third-party LLM, what's the absolute biggest risk?
Unauthorized access to that incredibly sensitive information, plain and simple. Plus, it likely violates privacy rights and destroys trust.
What if someone interferes maliciously during the AI training phase? What's the likely outcome?
You'll degrade the model's quality. Poisoning the training data leads directly to a model that's unreliable, biased, or just plain wrong in its outputs. It undermines its safety and usefulness.
Developers often use Jupyter notebooks. Is there a specific threat associated with them?
Data leakage is a significant one, yeah, especially if the security around those web-based notebook environments is weak. They can become an easy way for data to slip out if not locked down.
Basic protection for AI systems against unauthorized access or misuse. What's step one?
Strong access controls and encryption. Foundational security measures. Who gets access, and is the data protected at rest and in transit?
If you get data from a supplier for training, what's a common attack that could compromise the model's integrity during development?
The data being modified or poisoned during pre-processing, even before you get it or as you prepare it.
So corruption early on.
Exactly. Maintaining data integrity throughout that whole pipeline, including from suppliers, is crucial. Good data protection practices are key.
Deepfakes. What's the main worry there?
The spread of misinformation. Creating incredibly realistic fake videos or audio that can manipulate people, damage reputations, erode trust in institutions, it's a serious societal risk.
How do you best protect AI against input manipulation threats? Someone trying to trick it with bad inputs.
Using standardized input templates can help a lot.
Templates.
Yeah. Ensuring instructions or data fed into the AI follow a consistent, expected format. It makes it harder to inject malicious or unexpected manipulations. Sanitizing the input.
Okay, let's shift to audit and incident response. Detecting AI incidents. What makes it harder than traditional software bugs?
It's the nature of AI outputs themselves. They can be inherently fuzzy, inconsistent, or sometimes just plain wrong, even without an attack.
So it's hard to know what's normal error versus a real incident.
Exactly. Setting clear thresholds for incident indicators is much more complicated than with deterministic software. The baseline is noisy.
In incident response, what's the main job of a regression plan?
To get the system back to a known, good working state. Rollback, basically. Minimize the impact. Restore operations safely.
When an auditor is checking ongoing compliance for AI, what documentation should they really focus on verifying?
They need to verify the procedures for continuous operational surveillance and critical incident reporting. How are you watching it, and how do you escalate problems? That ensures emerging risks are actually being addressed.
If there's an incident involving personal data used by an AI, who's the most valuable expert to advise the response team?
Your privacy experts, definitely.
And why of them specifically?
They understand the nuances of personal data impact, data subject rights, compliance obligations, breach notification rules. All critical when personal info is compromised.
What's absolutely essential to have in an AI breach response policy?
A clear protocol for immediate incident reporting and response activation. Speed is critical in managing and mitigating breach impact. No delays.
How do you best weave AI-specific considerations into your company's main incident response strategy?
You need to customize your existing protocols. Address the unique aspects of AI data dependencies, model retraining needs, explainability issues, and involve the right stakeholders, like data scientists and ethicists.
What's the biggest hurdle in resolving AI incidents compared to fixing normal software bugs?
Resource demands, especially for retraining. Fixing an AI might require retraining a large model, which takes significant time, data, and computing power. It's often way more involved than just applying a software patch.
How are containment strategies different for AI incidents? Can you just unplug it?
Often, not easily. AI systems are complex, interconnected, data-hungry.
Yeah.
Just isolating or shutting down one part might have unforeseen consequences or not actually contain the problem if it's data-related. It usually needs a more careful, nuanced approach.
Why bother cataloging all the AI systems in an organization? What's the main point?
Transparency and visibility. It helps everyone, management, auditors, developers, understand where and how AI is actually being used. You can't govern what you don't know you have.
Let's talk equity again. An auditor looking at an AI recruitment tool. What's the most effective step to ensure fairness?
Conducting bias audits before it gets deployed. Catching and mitigating biases early is far more effective than trying to fix a bias system already in use.
If an auditor uses judgmental sampling, using their expertise to pick data samples to check for bias in AI, what expertise is crucial?
They need a solid understanding of the specific domain the AI is used in, banking, healthcare, whatever. Without that context, it's hard to judge where biases might lurk or what fair looks like.
So for checking bias in a large AI dataset, which sampling method is often best?
Judgment-based sampling can be very effective, actually. It lets the auditor use their domain knowledge to target areas prone to bias, rather than just random sampling, which might miss subtle issues.
What about comparison testing for AI datasets? How does that work?
You systematically change certain data attributes, like changing gender or race in a loan application dataset, and see how it affects the AI's output.
To see if it's sensitive to those attributes.
Exactly. It helps evaluate the influence of specific attributes on the model's performance and identify potential biases.
If an audit team starts using OCR optical character recognition, what's the main benefit for their data collection?
Big gains in accuracy and speed for processing documents. OCR turns images of text into machine-readable data, automating manual entry, saving time, and reducing errors.
What's the best way to grab website data if you're going to feed it to an LLM for analyzing audit evidence?
Data scraping is usually the technique for that.
Scraping.
Yeah, automatically extracting data from multiple websites and consolidating it. LLMs often need huge amounts of text data, and scraping is how you gather it at scale.
When interviewing people to build an AI inventory, how do you ensure good data quality?
Consistency is key. Using a standardized set of questions for everyone ensures you collect uniform data that's comparable and reliable.
What if you use speech-to-text tools for those interviews? What's a key concern?
You need to understand how that tool processes and stores the audio and text data. Does it send it offsite? Who has access? There can be data integrity and privacy risks if it's not handled securely.
How do you best ensure AI training data was obtained legally?
Obtain consent before using the data for training, especially with opaque black box models. Being transparent and getting permission for data use is legally and ethically essential. Which data quality dimension best checks if data has been messed with or wrongly changed? It's a combination, really. Accuracy, consistency, and completeness all contribute to overall data integrity and guard against corruption or mishandling.
Identifying contaminated data in massive AI training sets. What's the biggest challenge?
The sheer number of places it could get contaminated. Large data sets have complex life cycles, many touch points. Harmful data can slip in almost anywhere, making it really hard to pinpoint later.
AI hallucinations when models make stuff up. How can you best manage those?
Applying constraints on inputs and outputs helps a lot.
Constraints
Like limiting the scope of questions asked, or filtering outputs to ensure they stay within expected factual boundaries or formats. Basically, putting guardrails on the conversation to keep it grounded.
using sentiment analysis when assessing AI. What's a main benefit?
It gives you insight into how stakeholders feel about the AI or the enterprise overall. Analyzing social media, reviews, feedback for sentiment, positive, negative, neutral gauges attitudes. What about advisory reports and AI audits? What's their main job? They focus on providing guidance and consultation, suggesting process improvements, better risk management strategies for AI. They're forward-looking advice, not just backward-looking findings.
How do you make sure AI audit findings are communicated effectively and get resolved promptly?
Two key things. Clearly link the findings to the actual business risks involved. Why does this matter? And establish clear, actionable timelines for fixing the issues. Risk context plus deadlines. And how can you use AI within the audit process itself? By developing specific algorithms to automate certain audit tests. This frees up auditors from repetitive tasks to focus on more complex strategic analysis, making the audit smarter.
Who's the best person to help IT management check if an AI solution's outputs are accurate and effective?
Data scientists, usually.
Why them?
They have the deep expertise in data analytics, model evaluation techniques. They can properly assess the statistical validity and real-world effectiveness of the AI's results.
Wow, we've really covered a huge amount of ground today. From AI strategy and governance right down to data, operations, security, audit. It's a lot.
It really is. And it underscores that AI isn't just another piece of tech, it's a fundamental shift, organizationally and ethically.
Yeah, it changes how businesses run, how decisions get made.
And connecting it all back. Successful AI adoption really depends on that strong governance foundation, being proactive about risks, and deeply understanding how to maintain data integrity and model reliability across the whole life cycle.
It all comes down to building trust, doesn't it? And accountability.
Exactly. Trust in the systems, accountability for their actions, moving from just potential to responsible, practical use.
So that leaves a question for you, our listeners. As AI gets more powerful, more woven into everything we do, what stands out to you as the most critical area we need to focus on to invest in to ensure this technology serves humanity well? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.